morning, members. As there is a quorum, so I call the meeting to order. During the 2026 legislative session, as of the last meeting, we approved 3 items. The total value was $39.2446 billion. At today's meeting, on the agenda with 1 discussion paper, and this is new proposal from the administration. This funding proposal involves a sum of $726.8 million. If the proposal is to be approved by members, the total number of approved items will be 4. To the tune of $39.9714 billion. Land resumption and computerization block allocation involves $22.7477 billion. So works projects would involve $17.2337 billion. Let me remind members in relation to the discussion item today. If you have direct or indirect pecuniary interest, please act in accordance with the provisions under 83A of the Rules of Procedures. That is, disclose the nature of the interest before you speak. I also draw your attention to the provision under Rule 84 of the Rules of Procedures in relation to voting when you have a direct pecuniary interest. Item 1 on the agenda. 193DR, and there is paper PWSC 2026-27-1. This paper proposes the following: that is upgrading of 193DR to Cat A at an estimated cost of $726.8 million in money of the day prices. On the 23rd of March 2026, the administration consulted the views of the Environmental Affairs Panel in relation to this proposed item. Generally speaking, members were in support of referring this matter to this subcommittee. The main points of discussion were emailed to members on the 20th of April 2026. In attendance, we have a number of public officers. We do have a list on the agenda. I'm not going to go through the list. For members who would like to speak, please press the button to indicate your wish to speak. So far, 10 members have indicated their wish to speak. In the interest of time, I would like to say that for both the question and the answer, each will have 4 minutes. Let me go through the order of members speaking. They are Mr. Chen Pulan, Deputy Chair, Mr. Chris Yip, Mr. Andrew Lam, Ms. Christine Fong, Mr. Lam Chen Sing, Mr. Yan Wing Kit, Mr. Lau Ka Keung, Mr. Dennis Leung, Mr. Robert Lee, as well as Mr. Hong Kam Yin. So 4 minutes each for every member who would like to speak. First of all, Mr. Chen. Thank you, Chair. In relation to the modification and upgrading of the Sha Tin Transfer Station, you have my support. We know that this transfer station has been in use since 1994, many years. In relation to the facilities as well as the operational capacity, it's high time to carry out the project. I have questions for 2 aspects. I'm sure we are all concerned about the air as well as the surrounding environment of the facility. Well, as far as the air issue is concerned, when it comes to the handling of our waste, yes, I do understand that you will be purifying the air. You do have facilities for that. But do you have any standards so that you have a benchmark in relation to the air in the surrounding area? Will it still be a bit worse than what we can find in the urban area? Do you have a performance indicator? Are you going to make regular announcements about the air pollution conditions so as to set the minds of so that members of the public don't need to worry? And what about the air pollution problem, would it get worse when people come here to sweep the tombs during the relevant festivals, as we have a columbarium nearby? And then for the vehicles go up the ramp access, if they have a backlog, does it mean that there will be a backlog affecting the nearby traffic? Who will take the question? Ms. Wong. In relation to the air as well, air quality, as well as the question of odor that is of concern to the member. Well, the facilities are worn and torn, and then the ventilation as well as the negative pressure aren't really performing in a satisfactory manner. So for the current proposal, we do come up with many facilities. Say, for example, replacing and increasing the number of ventilation facilities, adding to the negative pressure there. And then there will be odor removing facilities at the main gate. And then for the tipping platform, we are going to have independent rolling gates or shutters. They will be of a higher speed and more efficient so as to avoid the escape of odor. And then at the ingress and egress of the tipping platform, there will be speed gates. And then we are going to step up the odor removal facilities. In fact, we have high-speed gates to replace existing ones. And we are going to have better air sort of cleaning or facilities. We do have new technologies that can address the issue. If we get your funding approval in the process, we are trying to see which will best fit our targets in relation to the air scrubbing facilities. For the traffic arrangements, there was a TIA. Our facility won't add to the pressure of the nearby traffic network. In fact, the new operator will need to come up with management measures for traffic as to whether we are going to have facilities to act as a buffer to accommodate the queuing vehicles. Now, defer to the EPD. Yes, who from the EPD? Can I supplement? Mr. Lai? Right, thank you, Chair. In the project, what we want to do is to make use of different facilities to improve the queuing of the vehicles. Say, for example, we are going to improve the layout of the facilities within the transfer station. Currently, we can accommodate 20 in the queue. Upon improvement, we can accommodate 30 queuing in the station itself. So we do have a buffer. We'll also rely on technology. Other than using the CCTV to monitor the queuing of vehicles, we are going to have AI-assisted system so as to predict the waiting time within the station. And then we can disseminate the information to the industry so that they know about the Sha Tin waiting time and they can make a decision to choose between the Sha Tin transfer station or other transfer stations. So we'll be monitoring the handling capacity as well as the queuing of the station. When we see a long queue lining up, we'll try to disperse the vehicles. The aim is to make sure that the queue won't be flowing onto the main roads. Mr. Chen has got another question. I asked for a brief reply. That is, do you have air quality objectives and will they be made public? Can you give us a brief answer? Or you can wait until another member raises a similar issue. Can you have a brief reply for us? Well, for odor management, we have the proposal to monitor the odor within and around the facility. We'll be using international standards. So there is a 5-grade system. We do have inspectors visiting the facility and around the facility, and will check the impact on the sensitive receivers. Well, we do have the relevant standards when we carry out the work so that it will be scientific and accurate. But then so far, this is something for internal monitoring to monitor the operation of the station. We do not plan to make it public. All right, thank you. Next, Mr. Chris Yip. For this proposal, you have my support because the transfer station has been in operation for 30 years. So we need to update the station facilities. It is urgent. I'm concerned about two aspects. First of all, for the roads outside the station, in particular the roundabout, I know that from time to time we see sewage overflowing. You did promise to step up the frequency of street cleansing, but still I need to draw attention to the following. You have back lanes, and it is also close to the residential developments, so it is undesirable to allow the runoff to gather there. And then it is said that you will incur an additional recurrent annual expenditure of $22.51 million. What is the current level of recurrent expenditure, and how do you come up with the figure of $22 million? You said that you will be stepping up the street cleansing of the nearby streets and roads. Will that come under the additional recurrent expenditure? Are you going to be flexible instead of relying to the conventional model of regular street cleansing at fixed frequency levels? Let me answer this question. For the additional annual recurrent expenditure, $22.51 million, I defer to the EPD. And then for the refuse transfer vehicles, we do make sure that they won't have tripping problems. When they move into the station, they will have their waste compacted, and then the waste will be kept in containers, so there won't be any tripping problems. For refuse vehicles, there are two types. Some from the FSHD, another from contractors, and they do have a container. For our vehicles, we have containers to gather the sewage. But then for the private sector vehicles, in the past we did subsidize the fixing of a cover as well as the gathering tank for sewage. So we are happy with their performance. And in fact, if they do not manage it well, then there may be problems of leakage of sewage. We have the power to enforce the law, and in fact, if any vehicle is found leaking sewage, then we are empowered to enforce the law. And then for this project, in future, if we do get your funding approval, then as far as vehicle washing or wheel washing is concerned, we are going to improve the facility. Currently, the vehicles are cleansed before they go out. It is not that they are not clean enough, but the problem is that the wheels or the vehicle body isn't dry enough. So in future, we're going to make sure that they will be dried first before they leave the station. EPD will explain the figure of $22.51 million. Thank you, Chair. Currently, the annual recurrent expenditure is $93 million. Upon completion of the works, there will be an additional annual recurrent expenditure of roughly $22 million. Well, as to why there is a need to increase the annual recurrent expenditure, I think it is mainly because we're upgrading the systems, and there are new facilities. Say, for example, we will be having more tractors and trailers when we use the 20-foot containers. And then for the compact mechanical facilities, instead of 60, we are going to have 30, which are of a medium scale. And then there are also other consumables, and that's why we have the figure of $22 million. In addition, Mr. Yip referred to the street cleansing vehicle. Via this project, there will be an additional vehicle, and that would add slightly to the recurrent cost because we make use of this opportunity to expand the scope or the catchment area. Mr. Yip would like to know whether we can be more flexible when it comes to street washing. Well, that's why we are trying to get an additional street washing vehicle so that we can be flexible and we don't need to adhere to a fixed schedule to carry out street washing duties. And we have already talked to the stakeholders, including district council members, as to the most suitable timing for street washing. And then if you find that the waste vehicles are having a tripping problem, please alert us and we will send our street washing vehicles to clear up the matter.
Next, Andrew Lam. Thank you, Chair. Well, I see that this is necessary and I look at the expenses. In the main, it is fine. I have a couple of points. Now, there is about 170 million or thereabouts, which is for renewal of containers and relevant vehicles for conveyance. Now, what are these vehicles, please? What does it include? If we do not know the details, we would think that it would include all the waste vehicles. Now, another point in the paper mentions the modular approach to provide more efficiency. I'd like to have more details. What part of this project will be modular, please? Thank you, Chair. Yes, Ms. Wong. EPD will answer this question. Yes, Mr. Lai again, please. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Lam, for the questions. Concerning this 170 million to update the mechanical facilities as well as the containers. Well, basically, for the station, for the 40-foot waste containers in the future, they will be replaced by 207 20-foot waste containers, and we'll have 44 tractors. These tractors will be used on the street from Sha Tin Station to Takulang or the New Territories Northwest landfill. And in the landfills themselves, within the landfills, the transportation will also be utilizing newly added vehicles. So for the transfer of containers, there will be these new vehicles, and then at the landfills, they will be emptied, these containers. And also for the there will be these 40-foot container frames which will be able to take up 2 20-foot waste containers. And then there will be 3 tractors which will be used in Sha Tin and 2 in Takulang, so that this will be able to fulfill the entire transfer process. Now, as for the modular approach for this project, it is actually used in the Sha Tin Transfer Station new executive office. That is where the modular approach will be used. As mentioned just now, one of the main points of this project is that the 3 main compressors will be replaced by 6 medium-sized compressors, and therefore in the building for the transfer station, there will have to be space to accommodate these 6 compressors. And the plan is for the executive office to be dismantled, so the office space structure will be dismantled so that it will be vacated to accommodate the 6 new compressors. So for the transfer stations and other outdoor areas using the modular approach, we will build a new administration office so that our colleagues will be able to work in this space in the future. Next. Christine Fong. Thank you, Chair. Concerning the modification and upgrade of the Sha Tin Transfer Station project, I'm in support of this. I see that it is 726.8 million in terms of total estimated cost. And for I Part 1, there will have to be a procurement of 20-foot waste containers, which are new. Now, there are 2 numbers, and that is 81 million and 76 million, respectively, for refurbishment and improvement works for the transfer station and environmental improvement works, respectively. And then we heard that there will be these vehicle queuing controls. My question is, in the tendering, can we also have GPS real-time monitoring of triage as well as queuing of the vehicles? Now, we have over 70 of such transfer stations in Hong Kong. For the Sha Tin station, in order for it to continue with its daily operation during the works, we want to know whether the operation will be reduced for this station and where will the where will it be transferred to? That is to say, the work will be taken up by other stations. Where will they go? And also for GPS and AI systems, will they be able to facilitate the operation? And also for this estimate expenses, it is about $200,000 per ton of handling cost. So perhaps you can tell the public for each ton of rubbish, how much will it be in terms of operation cost going forward? I mean, 200,000 is actually a very high number. Thank you for the questions. On page 4 of the document, we can see that it would include for the smart construction work site and also the administration building, etc., and also the sewer water system as well as vehicle washing system, etc. Now, as for the GPS, all those are already in the paper. As for the GPS system, for the refuse collection vehicles, they are already equipped with GPS because they need to provide the service according to the requirements, and therefore they are equipped with GPS already. Now, as for the private housing estates, etc., they also have their own contractors with their own hired refuse collection vehicles. And we will forward this message to the trade so that they can adopt more GPS technology according to their needs. We will encourage them so that they can also adopt this. Well, I think encouragement is not really effective. You need to provide subsidies. We don't want wastewater along the roads. Well, yes, Concerning the per unit cost, $200,000, why is it seemingly so high? Well, actually, in the papers of the government, how we calculate the cost is apart from the daily 1,800 tons, but you have to look at it as a 10-year operation, 10 years times 365 days. It is over 6.5 million tons. So it is actually $56 per ton. But there are certain mechanical and electrical facilities and also structural facilities which can last for over 50 years. So this is another angle from which you can look at the cost. Can we have a site visit, please? Yes. Welcome, welcome. Next, Lam Chun Sing. Thank you, Chair. For this kind of stations or transfer stations in the past, there had been work or labor accidents. For example, in the West Kowloon transfer station, there had been certain injuries of limbs of the workers. So perhaps we can avoid this kind of accidents where the workers are injured by the machines. That's the first question. Second, in Ma Shan and Sha Tin, it is easy to estimate because the volume of rubbish is stable. But on the other hand, the stations would collect Kowloon area rubbish area from outside of the zone. If there are more and more of such refuse, would this transfer station be able to cope for this small community where there are more refuse vehicles? Would it cause pressure? And a third question, it's been 32 years of service now since its operation in 1994 in North Lantau and also in the outlying islands transfer stations. They have also been modified, but they have only been in operation for just 20 years, and they have already been upgraded. For the Sha Tin Transfer Station, I notice it's been over 30 years of service. Is it because it is more enduring? But when the North Lantau Transfer Station came up before, for upgrading, it was only 20 years of continuous use. So why is that? Is there a standard, please, for upgrades? Now, first of all, for industrial safety, it is something that is of great concern to us. EPD will supplement later on this particular question. As for the Sha Tin Transfer Station design capacity, at present, at this moment, it is at 1,800 metric tons. Now, in the Finance Committee, we thank the LECHO for providing the funding for West Kowloon, North Lantau, and etc. for upgrading, and they'll be completed from 2027 on. And after the completion, they can triage some of the capacity from the Sha Tin Transfer Station. And in the future, we have some planned projects which will also handle the refuse so that there will not be any cross-district load on the Sha Tin Transfer Station. For each transfer station, actually, it is very different in their operation. Some are more land and other more sea route fed. So they are not all the same. For example, for the Lamay Transfer Station, we see the situation whereby for some, there can be some lighter upgrades. So they will be continuous in operation for another 5 years until, let's say, 2031, before there needs to be any modification and upgrading. So for each of the transfer station, we look at the actual operation situation for upgrading and modification. EDP for 4S safe operation site. Yes, for the 4S safety system, we believe this will help with the workers and also our colleagues in their safety coefficient. Now, there are other things that we are already doing, as Ms. Wong had mentioned just now. Labor safety is something that is of great concern to us, and we regularly talk to and educate the contractors and their subcontractors, pointing out some of the safety items that they need to be concerned about on site. In the past few months, we have already put in a lot of efforts in sharing such information with them, and in the future, we will continue to do so.
係支持呢個沙
Next, Mr. Yang Wing-kit. I'm in support of this upgrading proposal of the Sha Tin Transfer Station. It's beyond doubt it needs to be upgraded since it's been in operation for 30 years. I do have some questions. Now, $170.5 million for the provision and replacement of waste transfer containers and associated transport vehicles and mechanical equipment that is to tie in with the need to feed the waste containers to the IPAC 1. We have got 8 transfer stations, both those in operation, those under planning. So if every station needs to do the same, it is quite expensive. What about doing it at the end of the IPAC? I think that's better than upgrading each and every transfer station, because that would cost money. I think you may say that $170 million isn't really a great sum, but if you ask for $170 million for each and every transfer station, the total sum would be huge. So please see if it is more cost effective if you do it at the end of the IPAC. And then environmental improvement works that would cost us $76.6 million. It is a great sum, but then, other than provision of vehicles, it seems that the other items of the project are really expensive. I don't think you should have this being included in this way, because that would attract an additional consultant's fee, which accounts for a certain percentage of the total project cost. Could we take the question, Mr. Lai? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Yang, for his question. For the change of the containers, we have got 7 transfer stations. For those using the 40-foot waste contractors, only Tuen Mun Nam Tay and Sha Tin transfer stations are the only 2 that are still using the 40-foot waste containers. Even for that one in Tuen Mun, they are also getting funding to convert the 40-foot containers into 20-foot containers. So Sha Tin is the only outstanding facility that has yet to go to the 20-foot waste container arrangements. As to whether we can make the transfer at IPAC, that would be a very complicated logistics issue. IPAC is a shackle child, and for the ultimate destination for waste from Sha Tin Waste Station, it isn't really IPAC, it's the Northeast New Territories landfill. So IPAC doesn't need to take the 40-foot waste containers. IPAC 1 and IPAC 2 are so designed that we make use of 20-foot waste containers for the purpose of waste transfer. So at the tipping hall, for waste transfer vehicles to turn around, it has been designed in accordance with 20-foot waste containers. So if you want to make iPark being capable of taking 40-foot waste containers, it would be quite a major alteration, and I'm afraid the building facilities may not be able to accommodate the 40-foot waste containers. Mr. Young was of the opinion that building works accounts for a smaller portion of the project cost. Well, we aren't making a lot of modifications of the existing buildings. We're merely dismantling the partitioning, and we would like to make use of MIC to provide a new office. So relatively speaking, building works don't cost too much within the project. However, the transfer station has a lot of mechanical parts like the compactors, as well as using the 20-foot waste containers for a purpose of waste transfer. So we believe that all such must be included into the project scope. Mr. Young also asked the provision of transport vehicles and mechanical equipment. He would like to know whether consultants' fees are also charged for that purpose. Otherwise, the consultants' fees should be of a smaller amount. Well, indeed, for the earlier one, that's reasonable. But then the acquisition of trailers and tractors, etc., I'm a layman, but I'm still able to get quotations from the suppliers. I don't think you should have it being grouped in such a way that consultants will still charge a fee on that. It's not a matter of the amount itself, but rather whether it is reasonable. Do you have information for the members' reference? For the consultants' fees, that's mainly for the acquisition of mechanical equipment. As to the acquisition of transport vehicles, well, indeed, the consultants' fees involved won't be huge. Can you provide additional information after the meeting as to the breakdown of the consultants' fees? Thank you. Mr. Lau Ka-keung. The facility has been in use for 30 years and it has aged with significant wear and tear. Indeed, it is high time to enhance its operational efficiency. I would like to turn to paragraph 12 of the paper. It is said that MIC method will be deployed to enhance efficiency. Well, there was an earlier report that at On-Park Court, MIC was used, but then water seepage was found to be a problem. Within this contract, do you have any specific provisions to make sure that MIC is of good quality? Do you have quality monitoring, and are you sure of the connection issues or interface issues? And then on the 22nd of March, the director came to the EA panel. Well, in fact, the maximum capacity was in fact 2,000 instead of 1,800. And then there will be additional handling capacity acting as a buffer upon the completion of the project. So please tell us about the total capacity, taking the buffer into account. Well, after a super typhoon, there will be a lot of waste and junk lying on the street. Upon upgrading, please let us know about the additional buffering capacity, and are we able to deal with such emergency situations? Undersecretary, please. For MIC, I would like to defer to the EPD. For the Sha Tin TS, well, the designed handling capacity is 1,800 metric tons. As the member pointed out, we have a 20% sort of reserve capacity to deal with emergencies, like in the case of a typhoon, so we're able to cope with it. And that's why we have that figure of 2,000 tons as mentioned by the members. with Island East, Island West, and Kowloon West transfer stations being upgraded one after another, then some of the load will go back to the relevant transfer stations. So we believe that Sha Tin Transfer Station has got sufficient handling capacity as designed to deal with even emergencies. EPD can take the question of MIC. Yes, Mr. Lai. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Lau, for his question. For the MIC method and it being deployed to build the admin building, but within the contract, we do have our quality requirements, and we will pay attention to the leakage issue mentioned by Mr. Lau. Well, in fact, our own departmental staff also work from that building day out, so I'm sure we'll be monitoring the situation. Any follow-up questions? No? Then next, Mr. Dennis Leung. Thank you, Chair. Chair, I also support this paper that is Project 193DR. I've got a few questions. First of all, the 40-foot waste containers will be changed into 20-foot waste containers. What about the compactor systems? You say that 3 large-scale waste compactor systems will be replaced by 6 medium-scale, high-efficiency waste compactor systems. What about the frequency of day breaking down? Would that add to the pressure of the maintenance workers? And then for the acceptance of bulky waste, do you have sorting facilities so that we can take them away from the waste going to the landfills or incinerators? For the automatic vehicle washing systems, is it the type that we know about, 360-degree washing and air blowing, so that when they go back to the main roads, they won't cause wear and tear on the roads? And then for leakage from the refuse or waste vehicles, we find leakage along the route. Are you going to require the vehicles to be subject to monthly testing and inspection, and the results being backed up by monthly reports? Because I'm afraid the current monitoring system doesn't work. So are you going to adopt a risk-based approach so as to enhance the monitoring and management by having random checking? Under Secretary, may I defer to EPD? Yes, Mr. Lai, Deputy Director. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Leung, for your question. A few questions here. First of all, the compactor systems. Mr. Leung got a valid question. In recent years, the compactor systems were worn and torn, and so there were frequent times that there were frequent maintenance. There were 94 times that we had to resort to emergency maintenance or repairs. Over 50 of them were related to the repairing of the waste compactor systems. Waste compactor systems break down when we have a large piece of waste, and so the compactor system got damaged, and since it has become aged, and so its efficiency is lower. In the out of 23 repair services, 21 are related to the compactor systems in the year 2026. I'm sure there will be a positive impact when we turn them into the medium-scale, high-efficiency waste compactor systems. There are 3 currently, and then when one breaks down, then the Sha Tin Transfer Station will have 1/3 of its capacity being suspended. So in future, there will be 6 waste compactor systems, and even if one breaks down, we still have 5 out of 6 working. So we believe that it will have a positive impact on the operation of the Sha Tin Transfer Station. For the bulk waste handling, our views are similar to those of Mr. Leung. By having such a bulky waste handling sort of a center, we hope that bulky waste items as well as waste items having a higher content of metal, we can have them sorted out and then they will be handled separately. Well, in fact, it means that in future when they go to the iPark, when bulky waste like furniture is being handled, it will be more efficient. So what about the automatic vehicle washing? As to the actual sort of facility to be acquired, it depends on the tender to be submitted. We have written into the tender document saying that we need to have the washing facility as well as the dry blowing facility, so the vehicles will be clean and dry before they leave the station.
Robert Lee. Thank you, Chair. For this particular project with $720 million estimated cost, I'm in support of it because it is an aging facility. There is a need to modify and upgrade the transfer station. Now, in the paper, it mentions the modification and upgrade expenses, including the mechanized equipment renewal, that is a 27 million. And also, as mentioned just now, the there will be increase of the conveyor belts from 3 to 5 and also 6 20-foot waste containers to replace the 3 40-foot ones. So how long do you think these items will be able to be in operation, and what is the repair frequency? And also for the Sha Tin Transfer Station, per day, it is 1,500 tons of handling capacity. We have talked about that a little bit just now. I would like to know, after this particular upgrading project, for the daily capacity, it would be increased. True? And according to actual estimate, do you think this will be sufficient to cater for the next 10 to 20 years of waste handling, please? Ms. Wong, perhaps EPD, Mr. Lai will answer the question. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Lee, for the questions. In this particular item, we have about 270 million, which is to raise the operation standard of the mechanized items in the transfer station. Now, for the lifespan, it is of these items, it is no shorter than 15 years of operation lifespan for these mechanized items. Now, as for the cost, as mentioned just now, for the Sha Tin Transfer Station, its operation cost per year is 93 million per year. And in the future, there will be an additional annual cost of over 20 million per year. As for the handling capacity, it is handling 1,800 metric tons of municipal waste per day. And after the completion of the project, apart from that handling capacity, there will be 20% buffer. So that is to say, can cater for 2,000 metric tons of capacity. For this Sha Tin Transfer Station, the actual handling capacity in terms of tonnage in the future, it would be stable, or actually there can be a slight reduction because the Island East, Island West, and West Kowloon stations, part of the refuse load had been transferred to or had been handled by the Sha Tin Transfer Station. But as these stations, 3 stations, come onto line in the future, the handling load for the Sha Tin station will be lower in the future. Next, Hong Kam In. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Administration, for the paper for the upgrading and modification of this 30-year Sha Tin Transfer Station to increase its efficiency and also to enhance the environment within the station and around the station. For this particular project, I would like to know more details. For the enhancement of efficiency of the station, how much will it be raised in terms of handling capacity after the project is completed? And would it still be another 30 years for continuous operation afterwards? Now, around the station, there are international schools, primary schools, secondary schools, etc., and also the housing estate of Shek Mun, and also a columbarium, etc. So for the traffic around the area, it is quite dense. So have you talked to the stakeholders in the neighborhood, and in the future will there be periodic reports made to them? And also concerning costs, for the estimated cost for the project, it is 726.8 million, and there is a 63 million emergency contingency cost. Why is it so big for this contingency cost, please? And also for consultants' fees and also the workers' site staff together, it is over 60 million. And it is 52 million for the remuneration of RSS. I do not know why there is this particular discrepancy between the two figures. Can you give us the details? And for the project, it will be completed in 6 years. This is too long. How can you compact the period of works, please? Right, so there were a few questions asked just now which have been asked before and answered. For example, the traffic around the area and the 30 years operation time period. As for the costs, that had been answered to a certain extent. But for the 6 years period and also for the consultancy fee, can you answer those two questions, please? Now, for the contingency cost, if it is 9.5% approximately of the total. Now, in other projects and works, it is more or less the same. So it falls short of 10%. And in the 5 years, there will be phased completion, and during the construction period, we will have to continue with our operation, and we will first build and before we dismantle. So, for instance, the administration building, we will first build before we dismantle the site to vacate it for the compactors. So this is a reason. And Mr. Lai will answer the other questions. Thank you for the questions. Succinctly, for the machines, there will be at least 15 years lifespan. As for the added capacity, it will be 1,800 metric tons, but there is a 20% buffer, let's say during typhoons or around CNY periods. And through the upgrading of the projects, there will be new facilities, for example, AI to estimate the queuing time and also optimization of the queuing configuration within the station. And also we have been in constant contact with the stakeholders in the neighborhood. So for some of the traffic measures, the stakeholders in the area are in the know. Now, for certain times, such as Qingming and Chongyang festivals, we, as in the past year, we have had special traffic control systems so as not to affect the columbarium operation, and it is found to be adequate. Augustine Wong, I am in support of the project. I just have two questions. Before and after, the handling capacity is still 1,800 tons before and after. Can we, without a lot of cost, increase the handling capacity? I notice that this is a exempted item before the environmental impact ordinance. So for this upgrading and modification, will it not be worse off than the present situation? Now, for the cost, for the North Lantau project and this particular project, for these two items, for Part A, there are reductions. Is it because of why are there these reductions? Is it because of the two factors of the pier and also the container trucks frames? Well, if we look at the annex, you will see that we want to compare apple with apple. For example, for North Lantau, it is a sea route station, and so we want to take out those particular items so that we can make a good comparison. Yes, this is a station that had been in existence before the environmental impact ordinance came into place. But we have done environmental impact assessment. So after the project definitely is completed, definitely the situation will be better than what it is. As for whether we can increase the capacity of handling over and above of 1,800 tons, well, when we consulted the stakeholders and the district, as we have explained just now, we are able to handle that capacity. But if we add to that handling capacity for traffic and transport and environment, there may be certain impact. So there will have to be full communication with the stakeholders before we can do that. EPD, would you have anything to supplement? Mr. Lai? Thank you, Chair. And we thank Mr. Wong for the questions concerning whether we can do so, and that is without public funding or cost to increase the handling capacity. Can we do that? Perhaps that would not be possible because we have already changed to a new compactor. And as I have said in my answers to other questions just now, for the reliability of the operation with the new compactors, it would be a lot more reliable. Even though we have a 20% buffer, but for everyday operation, there will be positive impact because for the daily load, there are peaks and troughs because of the collection periods of the refuse collection trade. So for the speed of handling of the transfer station, it will be faster. So the queues will be shorter. So that is one of the benefits. Woon Kit, thank you, Chair. In principle, I support this project because it is indeed in need of modification and upgrading. Now, it mentions that there will be these 500, these 20-foot waste containers. With these smaller containers, which replace the 40-foot containers, will there be higher frequency of going to the Northeast New Territories landfill, and therefore adding to the transport load en route, and also adding to carbon emissions? So for these vehicles, will they be new energy vehicles so as to lower carbon emissions, etc.? I would like to have more details. And it had been mentioned just now, there will be AI equipped vehicles as well as odor reduction facilities. So my question is, in the future, will there be real-time disclosure of the data so that in the nearby housing estates, with their real-time data available, they can be alleviated of their worries?
Undersecretary, for the first question about the container vehicles, currently the containers are 40-foot containers. In future, there will be two 20-foot containers. So as far as the number of vehicle trips, it will stay more or less the same. And then as to the impact on traffic as well as the carbon emission, I don't think the change will be huge. For new energy vehicles, I thank the member for his support for the idea of deploying more new energy vehicles so as to lower carbon emission. This has our endorsement. But then the contractor, the operator, must take into account the actual circumstances, like the supply of power and the charging facilities for new energy vehicles. We'll try to talk to the contractor as to see what can be done. You talked about air quality and odor problems. We are not able to come up with a real-time announcement, but we do have a community liaison group. We will think of an appropriate way to allow the public to understand. Mr. Ng, anything to follow up? No? Then next, Mr. Jonas Ho. Thank you, Chair. Basically, I support the proposal. However, I've got 3 points. First of all, the design. I don't find the design in enclosure 2 unique, and that brings the issue of whether it is worth the money to engage a consultant. For consultants, sometimes they don't serve any purpose. I don't see any improvement in the architectural design, but you're still spending $10 million. In addition, RSS, I still don't get it. Of course, there was a paper on RSS earlier on. It's been contracted out. How come that you are sort of pitched the salary level at MPS 38 and MPS 14? Why don't you leave it to the private market? You adopted the civil service pay scale. Last time, you said that for the fuel prices to leave it to the forces of the market. Now you are going to get a tea lady and a general worker, etc. How come that you would like to set the salary levels? I don't think you need to take that into account. You don't need to care how much they're going to pay the engineer or the tea lady. So the core of my question is whether it is worth the money in relation to consultants' fees. And then another question is about automation. You've got over 500 containers and 47 trailers and 40 tractors. When we move from Sha Tin to Nantes, I think you can adopt autonomous vehicles, or do you have gantries so that you automatically load the containers onto the tractors and trailers? So I don't see anything moving in the direction of automation. Well, in future, you're going to have 7 transfer stations. You will consider this at LAMT. You have my support, but you still have to think of more ways to save money. Under Secretary, Mr. Lai from EPD, please take that question. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Ho. For this project, we are engaging a consultant. The consultant must have professional knowledge in many different aspects like E&M, air scrubbing, etc., etc. So through the consultants, we are able to get the professional support, and we can monitor the system, and we can monitor the performance of the contractor. Throughout the period, we'll monitor the performance of the consultants and how they monitor and review the progress of the project. For RSS, resident site staff, RSS will be employed via the consultants to have contract administration, such as safety and quality of work monitoring. RSS is mainly there to vet the documents submitted by the contractors and vet the reimbursement applications, as well as the daily interfacing. We need to avoid the project affecting the daily operation. As to the salary scales or salary levels, like other works projects, will try to be comparable. We'll try to assume or make assumptions basing on our existing pay scales. For autonomous vehicles, we have to see whether we can allow autonomous vehicles to be tested or even operated along highways. And that can be done, then we will consider deploying autonomous vehicles and the relevant technology. Under Secretary, Mr. Ho was concerned as to how we can make good use of public money and try to save as much as possible. Take the reprovisioning of the admin building. For Island East, we built a office building afresh. Now we're going to use MIC methods so we can save on the construction costs. Now when we use MIC vis-a-vis Island East office building, I think we can suppress the cost by half. So I just want to assure members that we are trying to save public money on all fronts. Mr. Aaron Book, I would like to ask a question on paragraph 16, namely the recurrent expenditure. You're going to spend $700 million on the upgrading and improvement. Today, the transfer station is in operation. What is the handling capacity? Upon completion, I think if I read it correctly, then the daily capacity will be 2,000 metric tons. But it says that there will be the incurring of additional recurring expenditure of $22 million, 3% of the project cost. I think you have already got an RC on the site. It is in operation. You have improvement, you have upgrading. I assume that there will be smart operation, there will be more automation, saving manpower. So assuming that the existing recurrent expenditure is X dollars, so in future it should be less than X dollars or just slightly over X dollars instead of having to incur an additional annual recurrent expenditure. Under Secretary, $22.51 million being the additional recurring expenditure. So a slight increase when compared to the current expenditure. This is mainly because we need to have manpower and maintenance of the improved and upgraded and additional facilities. And there will be the need to spend on consumables. Well, it shows, it reflects the market condition. Chair, the Undersecretary doesn't understand my question. You are already operating the facility. You have an operating cost, right? You are adding items to the facility. How come that you need 3% of the $700 million? You have existing facilities. Within this project, you're going to replace certain facilities. You're going to dismantle the existing facilities, and I suppose that the cost should come down. So $22 million. Is it just for the additional building facilities, or is it an additional expenditure for the entire facility? Undersecretary, do you have information with you as to why you need more money? More facilities, or the operating capacity will be enhanced? Well, we do have a breakdown, Chair. Now, we are going to use 20-foot waste containers, and there will be additional transfer facilities like the self-tipping vehicles, and we have the container systems. So that would incur $13.5 million. When compared with the existing contract, there will be 3 more compacting systems, and that would cost us $7.5 million in relation to the additional manpower needed for the for air system, and then consumables for enhancing environmental performance. We need chemicals, and we need materials to remove the odor, etc. So the total would come up to $22.51 million, because we need $1.7 million more. Please have a breakdown of the items after the meeting. Yes, comparing the existing facility with the upgraded facility in terms of the expenditure. Next, Mr. Holden Chow. Thank you, Chair. For the upgrading of the transfer station, it's been in use for 30 years. There is a genuine need to improve it. You have my support, but still I've got the following to say. Within the paper, it says very clearly that whether you go to NANT or to the new incinerator, you need to replace the 40-foot containers by 20-foot containers. The volume is smaller, so does it mean that there will be more vehicle trips? I think members were concerned about that. I myself have got this concern. At EA panel meetings or at the electrical meetings, we favor marine-based routes. Even for the transfer of waste, we would like to send by sea the waste to Tuen Mun or IPAC 2. IPAC 2 will be built in Tuen Mun. We encourage marine routes to transfer the waste. That was what was said yesterday. Now, for the Sha Tin Transfer Station, you need to upgrade it, and you have to handle the transfer of waste. But in the long term, I just wonder. Now, there are other transfer stations. So I've got those on Hong Kong Island, and they have one in West Kowloon. They are marine-based, and then it means that the waste will be contained in vessels. So does it mean that in future, Sha Tin will receive less waste, since you prefer marine-based routes. So are we going to make greater use of the marine-based transfer stations? Now for the waste containers, you are going to have 20-foot waste containers. Well, in case we are not going to use them at Sha Tin, they can be used elsewhere at other transfer stations. So it's a question of being flexible. Is that the case? Under Secretary, well, EPD will take the question about land-based or marine-based transfer routes. Now, for most of the transfer stations, we have got piers and they're marine-based. There are two. There is Sha Tin and Lam Tay, but the one in Tuen Mun is very close to IPARK 2. Now, coming back to Sha Tin, in future, of course, in 5 years' time, the project will be completed. In future, in Chang Pun O, we do have a facility planned. So it means that we can travel by sea to the IPARK. After the operator has been appointed, we can check with the contractor whether we can send by a marine-based route to the West Kowloon Transfer Station. Other than the marine-based routes, there will still be land-based routes. In future, Long Khu Tan will get a new road next to the sea because of reclamation. So maybe we can then design a new marine-based route.
Mr. Lai, please supplement. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chow, for the questions. Concerning the containers, I agree in that only Sha Tin Transfer Station is using all 40-foot containers. Now, after this has been changed to 20-foot waste containers, all the transfer stations will be using the same standardized waste containers, and this is a benefit for flexibility. But still, for each of the transfer stations, there will have to be sufficient containers to handle peaks, such as after typhoons. They will all have to be self-sufficient for these transfer stations. But with standardization, yes, indeed, there is more flexibility, whether it is in the containers or the vehicles. Members, I see that we have 4 members asking questions for the first time. Julia Lau, Michelle Tang, Tommy Chung, and Chen Hakan. Now, for those who want to ask questions, would you please take hold of time? After the first round, there may be a second round, and I may use my discretion to put this item to the vote. So do grasp the time. Next, Julia Lau. I am in support of this project in general, but I have certain conditions. I see from the proposal that there is, I'm looking at the diagram here, there is a large green area. Is this paint or what other material can it be? I do not know. So from environmental protection point of view, we're talking about carbon neutrality and sustainable development. I do not know how far it goes for this project in this regard. So if this is indeed paint, so for these actually, you can actually decrease the temperature by 10 degrees, as much as that, if you use the relevant material. And you can also reduce on air conditioning. But basically, I'm asking how much of these environmental protection elements are incorporated into this project. And we can use design audits And this audit doesn't take a long time, and you don't need a long-term consultant to go about it. But basically, for materials used, the consultant can give you some input so that the operation would be less costly. So also it aligns with the 15th five-year plan of the nation, of the country, and also in the country's double carbon targets. So this is what I have in terms of response from this diagram, and also this design audit can really help. Now that's the first point. Secondly, for the surveillance, I think it will be better to have a QS audit so as to reduce your cost. For many of the projects, they can provide opinions as to how you can use other materials to have better use of public funds. So these are the two conditions I have in my support for this project. Yes. Ms. Wong, would you want to respond to those 2 points? Perhaps APD would want to respond to those 2 points. Mr. Lai, please. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Ms. Lau, for the questions. In this project, for the construction and construction materials, they are smaller in terms of items. We have solar panels, for example, and this is optimization in limited magnitude in terms of the outlook of the building and the project. For the QS audit, because the tendering is already in the conclusion stage, so for this particular project, we may not be able to have the time to include this. But we will bring your input back for consideration in any case. Now, as for paint, which reduces temperature, yes, in our tender, we have specified this particular material so as to be more environmentally friendly. Wait for your second round if you have more questions, Ms. Lau. Next, Michelle Tang. Thank you, Chair. For a successful project, it really depends on a professional team, the government, the consultants, the contractors, and the coordination among them and the communication among them. And the consultant is necessary. They will do the design and monitor the daily work as well as take up the administrative work. In your paper, it is but 7 million, which is 1% of the total cost. I find this very low. For this kind of low cost, but with such responsibilities and having to ensure that the project is successful, this is too low. In the past, it had been 2 to 4%, which is normal, and for government projects, it had not been lower than 2%. If you want good people to be your consultants, you have to pay them. Now, also, for the other items such as vehicles, etc., and the facilities, I heard questions and asking whether this is too much in terms of cost, but I think it has to be commensurate with the work for the staff salaries as well as facilities. That is true, and also true for the consultants as well. But this is a 700 million project. Where is the money going? For costs, for services, it is very low out of this total estimated cost. If we want quality project, we will need to pay the necessary people. Mr. Lai, please. Yes, thank you for the questions from Ms. Tang. In this item for the consultancy fee, we have referred to other government projects, the relevant fees for other government projects. We have looked at them. And through the different departments, they have also gone through our estimate, cost estimate. And we believe that for this particular project, because it involves the upgrading of the facilities within the transfer station, this cost estimate is sufficient for consultancy fee to monitor and to carry through with the project. Ms. Tang, any follow-up? Right. The total cost is 700 million, but consultancy fee is just 1% and staff cost is low. And where is the other costs going to? Machines, etc.? It doesn't seem reasonable. So in hiring people, you have to respect the professionals and you have to look at the market value. Yes, Mr. Lai had already mentioned that he has referred to relevant projects in the government, and this is reasonable. So Ms. Tang is saying that you have to put value on the human element. So where there is staff or human resources need, please consider them appropriately. So that is the point. Next, Tommy Chung. Thank you, Chair. I am in principle in support of this project because the residents in the neighborhood had been complaining about traffic and odor and also waste or sewer dripping. But I have certain conditions in my support because I'm making the calculations concerning the 17.1 million for the changing of the waste containers. So it is about 15 million for per unit for each of the containers. If it is 1 million, it is really 50 million we're talking about. And also the frames, it is 10 frames would be 30 million. So all in all, it would be less than 100 million in total. So my question is, for this crane, can you tell us how many cranes will be purchased? And also for cranes that or other frames that are used for the 40-foot waste containers which are in use now, can they not be used for 20-foot waste containers? Do they need to be bought anew? And also for the 7,000 tons of waste, and also for the IPAC standard with the 20-foot waste containers, changing that from 40-foot waste containers. So together with the 3 other transfer stations, we're talking about basically how much of the waste from the Sha Tin Transfer Station is being sent to the IPAC, and whether the cost concerned is in keeping with the principle of cost effectiveness. Mr. Lai, we thank Mr. Chung for the questions. Concerning the 17 million in changing the waste containers and the relevant machinery, just a point of information for this project, it is a 507 waste containers with $40 million spent on the purchase of waste containers, and it is $96,000 per waste container. And the standard is very different from what you see in the waste piers, even though the length is the same. These are waste containers. They cover will have to be total for these waste containers. Otherwise, en route, the sewer liquids will be dripped onto the roads, and this will, of course, not be ideal. So in terms of the total coverage, there is very stringent requirement. And also compared to the ordinary containers, transfer and the load is actually much heavier, and therefore the structure of the containers are also more stringently required. And also for the 44 tractors, whether it is within the station or at the landfills, we need these tractors, and that is about 92.5 million in terms of cost. So this is what we got from the market in arriving at this estimate. And also there is a $13 million used for the 47 trailers, and also the load lifters. There are 3 used in the landfills, and the others are used in the stations. In the landfills, there is no crane machinery for the transfer containers, because for the 40-foot waste containers, there is actually a lift platform to lift up these waste containers. So there is no transfer machinery need. So for now, so in the future, we will need to acquire this new lifting machinery. Now, let me supplement. For the I-Park handling, on a daily basis, municipal waste is about 10,000 tons. For the 2 I-Parks, it is a capacity of 9,000 metric tons. So for the transfer stations, for most of them, they go to the I-Park for further handling. So for the Sha Tin station, even though it is not going to I-Park 1 at present, but in the future with development, when we change to the 20-foot waste containers, it would be appropriate for the need. So, next.
俾我發言，因為我唔係。
Mr. Chen, Mr. Gary Chen, thank you, Chair, for allowing me to speak. I'm not a member of the PWSC. For the Sha Tin Transfer Station, I'm concerned about 2 areas, and I need clarification from the administration. For the transfer station, well, it is aged with significant wear and tear. If you don't improve it, the impact on residents will be undesirable. There's odor and also environmental pollution when vehicles move in and move out. So, first point about the environmental impact. It is said that the capacity is being used at a utilization rate of 109%. I think in the past it was much heavily used. I asked questions every year at special FC meetings. Now, it used to have a design capacity of 1,200 tons. Now it is said that the capacity is 1,800, so 30% above the capacity designed. So it is highly utilized. You've got residents, you've got schools nearby. For refuse vehicles moving in and out, they do impact heavily on the surrounding area. Well, this is at the entrance of the transfer station. Vehicles are queuing up, not just right outside the entrance, but all the way backing up to Shek Mun Estate. So it's not just traffic that is being affected. Buses, minibuses, and other vehicles are also being affected. What is the solution? If you enlarge the capacity, if you make it nicer looking, I'm afraid there would be even more vehicles and the traffic impacts would be even worse. Now, In future, the waste may be transferred to IPAC. The IPAC is in the west, but then this transfer station is in the east, traveling from the east to the west. What is the journey distance through the urban area? Not to forget that for all the transfer stations, a majority of them are marine-based, allowing vessels to take the waste to the IPAC. Sha Tin is the only one that is situated inland, so to speak. So this is not quite right for the overall distribution of the facilities, such as the layout. Would the government consider closing down the transfer station? Because you have the target of zero landfilling and everything is in the west, so why don't you build a transfer station in the west? So can the administration enlighten me on the long-term strategy? Gary Chen referred to traffic impacts. A member asked a question and you gave an answer. And what about the long-term strategy? This is a policy issue. So, Undersecretary, 2 parts. First on traffic, and then I'll answer the question on marine routes. I thank the member for his suggestions. We are equally concerned about the traffic impact. In the past few years, the EPD introduced a number of measures like acquiring more containers, more tractors, and having mobile equipment like the excavators so as to shorten the vehicle queuing time. On our website, we allow the industry to know about the waiting time so that they can flexibly go to another transfer station. When we have a peak season, we do have an arrangement to divert the vehicles to other stations. I won't go into the details. The project will further enhance the efficiency of the facility and the turnaround time. Instead of 3 compactor systems, there will be 6 that would help with the queuing time. Now, West Kowloon, Island East, Island West transfer stations are having improvement projects. They will be completed one after another. In the past, during the contract periods when works were being carried out, the load has to be diverted to Sha Tin. Now, for marine-based routes, I will just be brief. As I mentioned that earlier on, after we have chosen a contractor, we'll talk to the contractor to see whether we can make use of a pier in West Kowloon to adopt a marine-based route. In the future, say for example, when we have new facilities at the Chang Kwan O transfer station, we can also have a marine-based route. What we want to do is to minimize the number of vehicle trips for the sake of carbon emission and energy consumption. We'll try as much as possible to avoid cross-district trips. Sha Tin has a population of 800,000 and the catchment area covers nearby areas as well. So we believe that Sha Tin Transfer Station has to be kept. Thank you. For the first round, members have all spoken. For the remaining time, 5 members would like to have a second attempt. So let me talk about time management. I still have to set aside time to put the matter to the vote. 5 members asking questions for the second time, so 2 minutes each covering Q&A. And Mr. Hong has asked his question. I will draw a line. So for those who would like to ask a second time and haven't indicated the request, then please do so ASAP. Mr. Hong. Thank you, Chair, for letting me having a second attempt. Well, just now, my question was about the contingency. The Undersecretary said that the figure was smaller than those in other projects. But how will the money be spent, $63 million. It is no small sum. So can the Undersecretary give a further reply? And then for the Community Liaison Group, in paragraph 17, you talked about Community Promotion and Liaison Group. It means that there will be regular dialogue with the stakeholders. I hope you will be having regular reports for them. Gary Chan talked about the long-standing problem of traffic impacts. I'm afraid it would only be aggravated during the construction phase, and it will attract more public attention. Undersecretary, I agree, and EPD may want to add to my answer in relation to contingencies. Having more communication with the community and having the Community Promotion and Liaison Group, I will note members' suggestion. That is, we must have regular communication with the stakeholders so that the transfer station will operate efficiently, and it will also be able to deal with the concerns of the community. EPD contingencies is called contingencies. So as of now, we are not able to break down the sum as to in what areas the money will be spent. The purpose of having contingencies is to deal with unforeseeable risk in the project. Then we can have money to take care of that. Well, for the stakeholders in the community, be it district council members or other stakeholders, we do have regular dialogues. Like we have made available the contact telephone number of our site staff. If the the queues are long, there is foul water leakage or other problems, they can contact our site staff. Mr. Dennis Leung, I don't think the question on the collection of leachage was answered. Do you have regular testing so that you can have a risk-based approach to avoid the foul water being leaked onto the road surface? Undersecretary, we do. In the past 3 years, for irregularities, there were 6,000, 7,000, and 7,000 random checking in the past 3 years, but none of them were related to foul water seepage. As I have said, when foul water is found to be leaking from the vehicles, we'll warn them, and you may even issue warning letter. In extreme cases, if our warning is ignored, such a vehicle would be prevented or barred from entering the station. Well, when they litter the road surface, the FHD may prosecute them. And there were 6, 13, and 10 cases prosecuted in the past 3 years, respectively. Ms. Christine Fong, Chair. The Undersecretary said that for the Sha Tin Transfer Station in Shek Mun, they will adopt a land-based route to take the containers to the marine base station in Chang Kwan O South, taking the waste to I Park 1. A number of members were concerned about the impact on road traffic as well as the problem of odor. In Chang Kwan O, of course, I fully appreciate the impact on residents from the landfill operation. For Shek Mun interchange, every day there is traffic congestion impacting upon the Mount Shan residents and other Chang Kwan O residents. For Sha Tin, you have a capacity of 1,800 tons. In other words, there will be 600 vehicle trips and 700 in total in relation to the return trips as well. And you are going to buy more trailers and tractors, so they will also go past Sha Tin Interchange to go to Chuan Kwan O South to deliver the waste to the marine-based transfer station. Have you carried out a relevant GIA to check whether that will aggravate the traffic issue? And then Mr. Chen also talked about the secondary pollution. When you take the waste to Chuan Kwan O, it means that you need to take care of the safeguards to be put in place. It is said that there is a community liaison group. Early this morning, I said that you mustn't be so passive. I think it's better for you to be proactive. You have to impose a duty on the vehicles so that the vehicle drivers must have GPS, and then they can also choose the less busy transfer station. So it's a matter of diversion. Ms. Fong's question was addressed earlier on. So Undersecretary, just be brief. For GPS, the question was answered. Well, we can have real-time information for the industry for them to divert to other places. The member was concerned about the facility in Chuan Kwan O. We are still at a very early stage. The Development Bureau has yet to get funding. When the site is ready, then it will be handed over to us, and we need to engage a consultant to carry out a more detailed study. So, as I said earlier on, we did consider sending the waste to West Kowloon, where there is a pier, for onward transfer to IPARC. As to the actual split of the waste, I think we will certainly talk to the community, so the member doesn't need to worry. You have a chance to talk to us in the future.
多謝主席。
Next, Tommy Chung. Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity. Concerning the 170 million allocation, I thank the administration for the information given just now. Now, concerning the tractors, for the 40-foot waste containers which are in use now, cannot some of them be used in the future? I mean, if we can use the original ones, then we do not have to incur the 92.5 million. Because for the transfer station remodification, much of the funding has nothing to do with the renewal of tractors, but I can understand the frames for transporting the 20-foot waste containers which are new. That I can understand. Can you answer that question? Mr. Lai? Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the questions. For the project in changing the 40-odd tractors, they would not be acquired right on the dot in October of 2026, but rather during the course of the project, they will be acquired at different stages. So for some of the tractors which are already in use for a long period of time, they have come to a certain aging stage, and also bear in mind that they go around the roads a few times a day. So we will use this opportunity to change to new tractors. So there is a need for these 40-odd new tractors. Now, as for the tractors to be used inside the landfills, because these are going to be 20-foot waste containers as opposed to the 40-foot ones, which used lifting platforms instead of these tractors. So there is a need for these new tractors for use inside the landfills. Right. Julia Lau? Yes, Chair, concerning these audits As I have mentioned, it is very often used. This is a value-added engineering exercise. So this is basically to make things more cost-effective so that the overall cost can come down. So we actually do a few rounds of these audits, not just once. So if the administration can consider using this audit service, and even if you come back and say that it is completely perfect, there is nothing to improve on, that is fine. But basically, I'm bringing this up as a suggestion for good use of public funds. Well, Ms. Lau has a very good suggestion, but for this particular project, you have now gone to a certain stage of progress. So it is in an advanced stage of progress for this project. So in the future, if you can use this concept, and that is be thorough in your inspection of the cost effectiveness of the projects concerned, and the audits, environmental audits, the materials used, and also cost audits, material audits, I think this is a good suggestion. So perhaps Mr. Chan from the Development Bureau, do you have any response right now? Well, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Ms. Lau, for the suggestion. First of all, we note the suggestion. The Development Bureau, we have a project strategy office, and it is exactly to look into the using of new technology and new materials, and also during the progress of projects at different stages, there is participation from this unit as well. Now, from the feasibility study stage, there is already audit of the entire project in terms of its design, its location, and also some preliminary elements. There would be inspection or audits of these. And also before tendering process, there will also be another look in from this angle as well. So please be relieved in this regard, and also to have the owner's mentality. And internally, there will be a notification to bring this to fruition. Now, as for the green elements in the construction, you will know that for the Public Works panel papers, there is already an item concerning this. Green materials and carbon emission reduction measures, etc., is already a part in the proposals. Right, so we have completed the first and second rounds of questions. I now put this proposal to take this to the vote. Those in favor of PWSC bracket 2026-27 bracket 1, those in favor of this project, please raise your hand. All those who object to this proposal, please raise your hand. Those members who have participated in the vote are in the majority in support of this proposal. This proposal is carried. As for the Finance Committee, whether it should discuss this project according to the procedures, paragraph 41A, Public Works Subcommittee, procedures, I will put this to the vote, that the Finance Committee continues to discuss the proposal as contained in PWSC bracket 2627 close bracket 1. And that means that our subcommittee proposes to the Finance Committee that they continue to discuss this proposal or paper. And if we do not support, then the Finance Committee will not be proposed to discuss this proposal. All those in favor? 3 members. Those who object to this, please raise your hand. those members who participated in the voting in the majority have vetoed or not proposed for the Finance Committee to discuss PWSC bracket 2026-27 close bracket 1 paper. In May or after of 2026, this will be proposed to the Finance Committee for discussion. Our next meeting will be on the 20th of May 2026, starting at 8:30 a.m. Please be punctual in coming to the meeting. If there are no other businesses, I declare this meeting closed. Thank you for your participation in the meeting.